Hello, my name is J.H. Smith, and I'd like to read you the book that I wrote called Lonely Leslie. This is for all you boys, girls, normies, normal people, and weirdos, people like me, who don't think you are someone. You are someone. You are beautiful. It was a nice afternoon by most people's standards. The paper boy was on his bike, flinging papers at houses while pretending to be a quarterback in the Super Bowl. Rose's belly stuck out like a summertime watermelon. Several miles away, clouds tumbled in the sky. Thunder rumbled. Rose waited. Lonely Leslie was born in the rain, outside of a boxcar, in the yard of a train. She wasn't lonely yet. She was a fresh loaf of bread, right out of Mom's oven and onto her head. Rose held her daughter in her arms oh so tight. It was it. It was time. All her worlds were just right. Rose cried in the rain as her three loves had now met, her daughter, her true love, and her great universal bet. Leslie's body grew fast, her body grew strong. The months were slow, though, the years seemed so long. She just sat by herself with no real friends at all. Lonely winter, lonely spring, lonely summer, lonely fall. At school, she didn't speak much, only when she had to. The other children never asked to hang out. If they would have, she would have been glad to. The children found her strange with her backpack of black, her packs of fine cheeses, her mother packed in black sacks. She ate Gruyere and cheddar and brie by the bunch, Munster at midday, Gouda and crackers at lunch. Most children that age didn't dig cheese that well. The flavor, the texture, the odd, footy smell. Leslie would usually find a quiet place on the shelf, read and eat cheeses, all by herself. What brought her the light through the darkest of times were the stories Mom told, the most colorful rhymes. Rose, on most nights, would sit on Leslie's bed and tell her great tales to fill her young head. Rose sat down one night with a story so new about a green place she thought up, right out of the blue. The green place had animals of all kinds and sorts, a few types of tall, and an assortment of shorts. It had long golden rivers, cotton candy clouds rolling by, and mashed potato mountains under a savory gravy sky. There was one animal in particular that helped all the rest. He could reach all the tall trees, bearing fruits that were best. His name was Steve. He had very long features to reach the high foods to feed all the creatures. Steve wandered a lot by himself through the trees, always on the lookout for friends and for cheese. He was taller than most, so he didn't feel right. He thought creatures who saw him would be full of fright. Steve had purple skin with yellow spots all over. He wasn't perfect, no, but he had kindness in tow, sir. There's Steve. The small animals wondered, how do we get up there? Until they met Steve, who decided to care. A small furry creature named Wendell wandered one day to a place far from home, but not too far away. When he met Steve in a field, he said, "My goodness, you are tall." Steve replied with a grin, "You are the smallest of all." Though they were not alike, they became pals right away. Wendell said, "My friends are hungry, so I fear I can't stay." "I can help you," said Steve, "because my neck is so big. I can reach the banapples and the watermelon figs." There's the banana apples, the watermelon figs. So Wendell took Steve to his home to a room and gave him some supper with a fork and a spoon. "It's not much," Wendell said, slapping a tiny portion on his plate. Steve said after supper, "Let's get out there to get food before it's too late. My neck is quite large, as you have seen. I reach all the high fruits that are fit for a queen. I will help feed your village. I will help feed them all, from the tallest of tall to the smallest of small." That is so kind, said Wendell with a lump in his throat. We could feed the green aardvarks. We could feed the pink goats. So Steve labored long, with no need for rest, to get up in the trees to pick the fruit that was best. The higher the fruit, the better the taste. Steve climbed way up, with no day to waste. He climbed one here huge tree almost all the way up. When his foot slipped a bit, he fell fast with a thump. His leg was quite hurt. It received a large gash. Wendell and others came to his aid with a dash. Rose closed the book. Story time came to an end. What happened to Steve? Asked Leslie as she jumped on her bed. We will find out tomorrow, Rose said with a smile. That's a load of freaking duty that steams in a pile. Watch your mouth now, said Rose, with a very slight grin. We will resume tomorrow. We will find out how it ends. Can I ask you some questions before sleep? Leslie said. Ask whatever you like before you sleep in your bed. Why was I born in the rain? Leslie asked with a plain face. Rose answered her simply. So your dad's in your space. Your father drove trains for a living with joy. He would throw children root vegetables, red licorice, and toys. When it rained, we became such a happy girl and guy. We called rain God's water that fell from the sky. You call it God's water, too? Leslie jumped out of bed. Rose smirked. Should I call it rain? Or something boring instead? Also, why is there a Y at the end of my name, instead of E or I or something more plain? I did that so you would question and always ask why, so you would not just say yes and fall right in line. You have a beautiful imagination and a pure, intelligent mind, a powerful soul, and a heart that is kind. You must trust the God universe, or the Gooniverse as I name it, to kill all your demons, to master, to tame it. We have a big day tomorrow, now get some good sleep. With the Gooniverse inside her, Leslie slept good. She slept deep. Leslie and Rose both rose in the morning to a nice rainy day. They walked to a building where Rose's father now stayed. It was a place where people go when they need help with normal things, like drinking or walking or putting on rings. They walked into the room where Leslie's grandfather was. It was quiet, it was still, with just a faint television buzz. Leslie went around the table where Grandpa quietly sat, past an old woman named Pat. She patted Pat's back while Pat sat. Leslie left her hand on Pat's back for a moment or so. Pat put her hand on Leslie's, smiled sweetly, and glowed. It didn't seem like much to Leslie to let her hand stay, but sometimes the tiniest love can go such a long way. She came to her grandpa, who sat quiet in his chair. He was a good old man, very gentle, very kind, very fair. His journey was almost done at the end of all things. In the journey ahead, he would drink, he would walk, he would put on new rings. It was the last time she would see him, and she knew the fact well. She kissed his cheek lightly, as the love in their hearts swelled. As she left, she and Rose looked back in his eyes. In this locked, lovely moment, all shared a joyous cry. Leslie looked at the woman whose back she had touched, and the love in her eyes, and the touch she had touched. As Leslie stood by the car, ready to leave, she thought about kindness and the story of Steve. We don't think we are much sometimes, she whispered to her mind, but the answer is love, and to always be kind. At home that night, getting ready for sleep, they finished the story of Steve's troubles so deep. The creatures in the green place acted as fast as they can. Gathered at Steve's side, they all agreed on a plan. The green aardvarks took Steve on a stretcher with great care, hurried him into their house, and stuffed him in there. Wendell went to the Golden River to gather healing waters with haste. He ran fast and tired, but no drop went to waste. The pink goats got dressed up in their suits and their ties. They were going in style, or at least they would try. Cool. They put on their shades and cool rings on their fingers. Howard said, "To the mashed potato mountains. We've no time left to linger." The mashed potato mountains were so high and far away. It would be a long journey, Howard said. We must be strong. We must be brave. The goats traveled for days, 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 days. Their tummies were rumbly. Their minds were a haze. Howard said, "To the mashed potato mountains. Our will says we mustn't stop. We will get food. Help our friend Steve. We will reach the top." The goats reached the highest top, their first journey complete. Howard said, "Now let's scoop some potatoes, so Steve has something good to eat." Just for good measure and a bit of good flavor, they took a giant spoonful of sky gravy to savor. They made a large net to catch a cotton candy cloud floating by. "Something sweet to eat," Howard said. "Something new we can try." Yeah. The goats were exhausted from the journey, their suits drenched all in sweat. Howard said, "We have so far to go. We are not done yet." Rose closed the book for a moment or six. Leslie said, "Please keep reading. What happens next?" "What do you think happens?" Rose asked with a grin. Leslie replied, "Maybe the goats die." "They don't make it down again?" Rose said, "You have to believe and think that they can. They will find a way with a universal plan. Sometimes things happen, and you may not see why. The universe will help you, from the land to the sky. The universe arrives in the silence of your body and mind. The answers will come. You will understand why." Rose opened the book. Some huge birds swooped down. When they saw the goats there, they stopped for a bit. They sensed goat despair. Darrell asked, "What are you doing so high up in these taters?" Howard replied, "We needed food now. We're carrying calories to cater. We have a hurt friend. He needs help right away. He is hungry. He is injured. We can no longer stay." Darrell said, "We will fly you back home. We will get you there speedy, with your cotton candy clouds and your spuds with sky gravy." Howard said, "We will pay you back somehow. We are so grateful this day. We were at the end of our rope. Thanks to you, we are okay." While they made their way back, Wendell came to Steve with the goldness. He gave Steve a drink, and splashed away his leg mess. The green aardvarks were there with a needle and thread. They sewed up Steve's leg, put frozen bagged peas on his head. Steve was lying in his bed with nowhere to go, no deeds to do, no seeds to sow. Steve wondered if there were cheese trees anywhere in this town. A big hunk of stinky cheese would turn my frown right around. Wendell fetched a book to help pass the time. Wendell said it's one of my favorites, with a few good rhymes. "I think you will like it to help pass your hours. It's about a girl named Leslie who found her kindness and power." The big birds landed with the goats still looking dapper. Everyone could eat taters, for now and long after. The green place's inhabitants took care of each other. Steve got healed up. His hurt leg got all better. They lived amongst the green trees and the rivers of gold, from the time they were once young to the time they would grow old. They loved one another from the weakest to the strongest, from the shortest of the small to the biggest of the tallest. Rose shut up the book, the story complete. Leslie said, "It's time now for taters and cotton candy to eat." "That will be tomorrow's breakfast," Rose said and sat down. "Your grandpa will die soon," she said with a frown. "I know," said Leslie with a sad girl face. "He lived a good, long, fruitful life. He turned frowns the other way. That's all that matters when life is all done, Rose said with a grin. His new life in the stars is about to begin. At the end of all things, at the end of your time, it's your kindness and grace, the curses you made into rhyme. Those are the things that matter, the things so strong. Beyond money and fame, they are the things that live on. I understand. I get the things that you say. I will plant them in my heart. In my soul they will stay. Rose smiled and kissed Leslie's forehead. Good night, my sweet girl. Sleep sweetly in the night. I will see you in the morning when the world is light. While Lesliey slept, her grandpa passed away. She dreamed it and sensed it, but she still slept okay. All the green place creatures came to Lesliey in the night. They brought her calm, no need for fright. There is a cycle to things, to both death and life. There is no need for shame, no need for strife. They all embraced her together with Steve on the front line. He said, "We will be with you, always, through good and bad times." They gave one last gift to make Lesliey feel better. They changed one important thing, just one single letter. The lonely in her name now didn't quite fit. They turned the N upside down and squished it in just a bit. She was lovely, Lesliey, now, and would be from now on. She would show the world kindness until her breath was all gone. Steve noticed an envelope in between Leslie's fingers. It said Steve on the front in great big bold letters. He slipped it out and shook it around. Something was in there. It gave a soft rattle sound. "Good night, Lesliey." Steve kissed her head. "You will be a new person when you get out of bed." There were cheese tree seeds in the envelope Steve got. He planted them right away in a very special plot. He knew they would grow fast. Cheese trees grow fast and strong. The first rain came quickly. He didn't wait long. God's water fell on Steve's face, on all the dirt, on every stone. "Thank you, Lesliey," whispered Steve, "for making me feel less alone." The years they did pass, and lovely Lesliey grew up. Her partner called her Lovely to shorten it up. Lovely had a good job that paid her bills okay. She had a good mate, some good friends. Some would leave, some would stay. She was happy and giving, over all that's what matters. She did more good than bad in life's bountiful buffet platter. One day, Rose died. Lesliey went to the funeral. She thanked Mom for her humor and the things she had taught her. She knew Rose would accompany her over mountains she climbed. Rose would ever bloom in her heart and her mind. After the funeral, when lovely Lesliey stepped outside, she noticed large, beautiful gray clouds rolling by. She felt a kiss of God's water on her forehead. It began to rain. The end. Thank you for your time.